Watch this space. Egypt's rekindling friendships. Egypt's made its first high profile visit to Syria and Turkiye in a decade, marking a shifting landscape in Middle Eastern politics. The Middle East is a particularly volatile region of the world. Nations' allies and enemies sit right next door to them, and the constant wars and attacks changing the political landscape regularly. Despite all this, efforts to restore relations and bring peace are being made. And this is from atlasnews.co. On February 27th, Egypt's Foreign Minister Sami Shukri paid a visit to both Syria and Turkey, meeting personally with Syrian President Assad in Damascus and Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu. The visit marks the first such from a high-ranking Egyptian official in a decade. The goal of the visit is primarily humanitarian and to pass on solidarity from the leadership, the government, and the people of Egypt to the people of Syria, Foreign Minister Shukri says. Syria suffered from a severe lack of allies in the region since the breakout of the Syrian civil war. They were suspended from the Arab League, and many nations in the Middle East supported rebel groups in Syria in recent years. Largely due to the gains Assad's government has made in the war, relations have begun to warm. Isolating Syria simply was not working, and now, with the earthquake in early February, support, though limited, it's begun to flow into Syria. Egypt itself donated 1,500 tons of humanitarian aid to Syria during the visit, and Shukri said it's in their interest that relations return to normal. After the earthquake, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi spoke with Assad over the phone for the very first time, despite al-Sisi having been president since 2014. After his visit with Assad, Shukri continued on to the Turkish city of Mersin, an area hit by the earthquake. His arrival coincided with that of an Egyptian aid ship. What's important for us is to bring the relationships back to the old level and to take them very far in the interests of both countries in accordance with their common interests. The foreign minister's visit to Turkey is a part of a greater effort from both sides to warm relations between the two. They soured in 2013 after Egypt had a coup which removed their leader that Turkey's President Erdogan was friendly to. For quite some time, Erdogan stated he would refuse to meet with al-Sisi. However, on the sidelines of the 2022 Qatar World Cup, the two met. They shook hands, they held discussions, and the Turkish Foreign Minister Cavusoglu said that another meeting soon between al-Sisi and Erdogan was likely. During our talks today, we exchanged views on mutual visits in the upcoming period. Our deputy foreign minister met twice before, and it'd be beneficial for them to meet again. After our talks, our presidents can meet either in Turkey or Egypt, Foreign Minister Cavusoglu says. And back in November, Cavusoglu said it was their hope to reappoint an ambassador in the coming months, and no timeline has been given for when that may come. That's Atlas News. And from Ahram Online, this is Egyptian Foreign Minister Shukri to participate in G20 meetings, Raisina dialogue in India. Egypt's Minister of Foreign Affairs Sameh Shukri headed on Tuesday to New Delhi to participate in the meetings of G20 foreign ministers, as well as in the Rising Dialogue. That's 2023. Let's see what else we have. From Azer News, in rare visit, Egyptian foreign minister voices solidarity with quake-hit Turkiye. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sami Shukri visited Turkey on Monday to show solidarity after two massive earthquakes jolted southern Turkey, his first visit after a decade of tense relations. Egypt's foreign minister said the trip aims to show solidarity with the two countries and their brotherly peoples after the devastating earthquake that hit Syria and Turkey earlier this month. The 7.7 and 7.6 magnitude quakes on February 6 killed more than 46,000 people in both countries. I'd like to thank Egypt for the support they extended to us within a short time, Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said at a joint press conference, and it was with Shukri in front of an Egyptian vessel carrying aid at the port of Mersin in the eponymous Turkish Mediterranean province. He said Egypt sent at least 520 tons of humanitarian assistance to Turkey, in addition to early deliveries in the immediate aftermath of the catastrophe. Friendship and brotherhood can be seen in challenging times. The Egyptian people showed that they're brothers and sisters of Turkey once again in those challenging times, the minister added. And as you know, we're opening new pages in our relations with Egypt in Doha. Erdogan met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and the meeting was very beneficial. A short while ago in our meeting at the airport, we discussed which steps we can take to improve our relations. Improving relations between Turkey and Egypt will benefit both sides, not only for the two countries, but also for the stability and economic development of the region. As we said during our cold relations, Egypt's important for the region, Palestinians, the Arab world, Africa, as long as Egypt is strong. I certainly believe we can improve our relations. We'll continue working together to improve our relations even further. The fact that my brother Sami Shukri is here today in Turkey is important and meaningful for us, he said. For his part, Shukri said, I want to express gratitude for the warm welcome here. I have a message of solidarity and support to the friendly Turkish people on behalf of the government, leadership, and Egyptian people. The catastrophe broke our hearts, and we're working in our full capacity to support our brothers and sisters in Turkey to overcome this catastrophe. Aid supplies that Egypt sent were the least Egypt could do to mitigate the suffering of people who were hit by the catastrophe. We prioritized ships through the Suez Canal carrying aid to Turkey, he said. Egypt's provided more than 1,200 tons of aid, material, and other things since the earthquake. In addition, Egypt's trade ship Al Hurriya arrived Monday morning at the port of Mersin with 525 tons of additional aid, including tents, blankets, mobile toilets, beds, and hygiene products. Condolences have poured in from around the world, expressing solidarity with Turkey and many countries sending rescue teams and aid, including Egypt. And from Daily Sabah, Egypt aims to restore ties with Turkey with new process. Egypt's foreign minister spokesman Ahmed Abu Zaid said Tuesday that they'd launch a new consultation process with Turkey to put relations back on track. And those relations are between Cairo and Ankara. His remarks to Egyptian TV came after Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri's landmark visit to Turkey on Monday. Zaid stated that Shukri's visit was a display of humanitarian solidarity following the February 6 earthquakes that hit Turkey's south. Both sides gave several messages of their will to restore relations to their normal course following the meeting in Qatar, Zaid said. He added that Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu and Shukri agreed upon a process where the two sides would directly engage with each other. In this process, topics for negotiations will be determined as well as clear vision for both countries. This consultation process will be determining in rapid restoration of ties, the spokesperson said. And from All Arab News, Egyptian foreign minister makes rare visit to Syria and Turkey amid earthquake disaster. The Syrian regime has been largely cut off from the Arab world since the Syrian civil war began in 2011. Egyptian Foreign Minister Sami Shukri on Monday visited Turkey and Syria, marking the time in over a decade that a high level official from Egypt has traveled to either country. Shukri met with Syrian President Bashar al Assad in the nation's capital of Damascus to express his support of the Syrian people in light of the recent devastating earthquakes resulting in more than 50,000 deaths in early February. The goal of the visit is primarily humanitarian and to pass on our solidarity from the leadership, the government, and the people of Egypt to the people of Syria, Shukri said. Al Assad's been largely cut off from the Arab world since the Syrian civil war began in 2011. It was only last year that he made his first trip to an Arab nation when he visited the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, in United Arab Emirates. While in Turkey, the hardest hit nation from the 7.8 magnitude earthquake, Shukri met with his counterpart, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu. He issued a statement of sympathy to those suffering from the devastating incident and promised continuity of aid for supporting Turkiye and its brotherly people. Shukri said his time in Syria and Turkiye was not just for humanitarian purposes, but that it also reflects the interest for relations between Egypt and the two countries to return to their normal status. From the Egypt Independent, Egypt adopts cooperation solidarity-based policy for good of all peoples. Egypt's always been open to its sisterly Arab nations, Foreign Minister Sami Shukri said on Monday in an interview with a satellite TV channel this evening. Ever since President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took the helm, Egypt's adopted a foreign policy that's been based on cooperation, synergy, solidarity for the good of all peoples, not for destabilizing other countries, Shukri added. Reiterating Egypt's full solidarity with the Syrian people after the devastating earthquake earlier this month, Shukri said Egypt and Syria are bound by robust, deeply rooted ties. He also highlighted a mutual willingness at the political leadership of countries to push these ties forward, which was made clear by President Bashar al-Assad during the foreign minister's recent visit to Syria, the first by a top Egyptian diplomat in a decade. Shukri also stressed that Egypt doesn't interfere in the domestic affairs of Syria, but it's always provided support and synergy, whether of the humanitarian or political levels. Shukri visited Syria and Turkey on Monday to express solidarity with the countries following the earthquakes in a fresh move, showing Egypt's thawing relations with both countries. He met with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in Damascus, expressing his solidarity with the country following the deadly earthquakes on February 6, whose death toll in Turkey and Syria surpassed 50,000. Meanwhile, Assad told Shukri he appreciates President Sisi's phone call following the disaster. And from Press TV, this is Egypt's foreign minister visits Damascus for the first time in more than a decade and meets with Assad.
And now it's time for this hour's news review. Now, the Egyptian foreign minister has met with the Syrian president, the first visit by a top Egyptian envoy to Damascus in more than 10 years. Sami Shokri conveyed President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi's message of solidarity with Syria following a devastating earthquake that hit the country in early February. Shokri also expressed Cairo's willingness to strengthen bilateral relations. He held discussions with his Syrian counterpart, Faisal Mikdad, as well. On Sunday, a delegation of Arab parliamentary leaders visited Damascus and met with the Syrian president. Well, the visits indicate the Arab country's willingness to restore normal ties with Syria, whose membership in the Arab League was suspended in 2011. Well, I'd like to welcome my guests to this news review. Out of Damascus, Press TV's Mohammed Ali, and out of Brussels, journalist and political analyst Elijah Mackner. Thank you both for being with us. We'll start off with Mohammed Ali. Mohammed Ali, tell us about this visit and what has taken place, the information you have on it so far.
Yes, Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri arrived this morning in Damascus International Airport, Then he headed directly to the presidential palace where he met Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and conveyed to him a letter of solidarity from Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The letter expressed condolences, of course, and also it's a message of solidarity to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and all Syrians affected by the earthquake. The letter expressed Cairo's keenness to bolstering, perhaps, historic relations between Syria and Egypt, and also boosting the joint cooperation between the two states. Now, this itself is an indication that this is not just a visit to express solidarity with Syria, but it's also kind of a visit considered as a first step in perhaps restoring normal relations between both countries. Now, President Bashar al-Assad thanked Egypt for its assistance since day one of this earthquake, and also said that improving bilateral ties among Arab states is a foundation for having a better general situation in the Arab world. Also, the foreign minister met with his Syrian counterpart, Faisal al-Maqdad, and they also discussed ways and means to boost cooperation.
Well, Elijah, your perspective, I mean, the overall significance, if we look at the line that these Arab regimes had taken towards Damascus over the years, it is quite a special day. Your overall perspective about these meetings taking place?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I think the visit has different aspects. First of all, the Arab countries can do very little without the approval of the Americans and their European allies. Secondly, we've seen during the earthquake and the devastating consequences, the delay of the Arab and European that arrive at the end to Aleppo airport with the support to the civilian victims who were really in need of support. And when the Americans and the Europeans delayed such a support to after the possibility of finding anyone alive under the debris. Thirdly, this move is really, yes, something very special about the regaining of the visit of the Arab leaders, particularly from the side of this Egyptian government, because the day before the member of the parliament of many Arab states came to Damascus, but still this is not a real normalization with the relationship with Syria, although many Arabs argued in the past that it's better to return to Syria rather than leave it in the hand of Russia and Iran, the two countries that supported Syria in 2011 throughout the war when all the Arab and the Gulf country conspired against Syria and invested billions of dollars.
So what's the bottom line in your perspective, Elijah? Why do you think that this visit, why did they go to Syria? What are they after in your perspective?
Well, they're trying to say to Syria, we're coming to see you, but we still don't have the full support to restart the reconstruction. Syria needs between 500 and 800 billion dollars to be reconstructed. The Arab didn't invest anything. It's only a bit shy Russian support on the military side, but a lot of Iranian support. Every 15 days there is a tanker of oil. There is a humanitarian support that's coming through the border on a very regular basis. Where are the Arabs and the Gulf-rich countries? They don't dare to support Syria because Syria is still under the sanctions, still under Caesar sanctions, and the Americans are shying away their interest in Syria, although they are present in stealing the Syrian oil and the Syrian food basket. If they really want to support Syria, they just can leave and end their occupation and allow the Syrians to benefit from their own natural resources. So the return of the Arab is really a visit of a foreign minister, is not really a big event if it is not followed by a serious plan of reconstructing Syria.
All right, and on that.
And from TRT, Egypt's foreign minister oversees aid delivery and visits Turkiye's quake zones.
I have a message of solidarity, support and sympathy for the Turkish people from the Egyptian president, government and people after the catastrophe that hit the country. The catastrophe broke our hearts. We are exerting all efforts to support our Turkish brothers and sisters to help with this tragedy. The aid supplies that we have offered are the least we can do to mitigate the suffering of the people injured in the earthquakes. Giving the international aid ships the priority to cross the Suez Canal has demonstrated the strong ties between the Egyptian and the Turkish people.
Shukri also made a stop in Syria's capital Damascus before arriving in Turkiye. The war in Syria, together with several other regional disputes, were at the heart of tensions between Egypt and Turkiye over the past decade. But after the quake struck on February 6, Egypt was among dozens of countries to provide quake relief supplies. International aid and support has been pouring in since the earthquake struck 3 weeks ago, killing more than 50,000 people in Turkey and Syria. And to further discuss the Egyptian Foreign Minister's visit to Turkey, joining me now from Lisbon is Riccardo Fabiani. He is the North Africa Project Director at Crisis Group. And from Doha, Ali Bakir, he is a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council and a professor at Qatar University. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Ali, Egypt's Foreign Minister Shukri was in Turkey on Monday to oversee the arrival of hundreds of tons of earthquake aid to the stricken regions. Could you talk to us about the significance of this visit, which came after an interval of at least 10 years?
Thank you very much. I think that this is a very timely, very critical and important and welcome step from both sides. The fact that it is the first in 10 years is in itself very telling. I believe that there have been three factors that motivated the Egyptian side to take such step. First, the disaster diplomacy, if I may say, which offered a proper excuse or opportunity for Egypt to send its foreign minister, and also second, Egypt's economic status and currently, which is under very pressure, and third, also the will of the Egyptian government to build on what both sides have achieved till now. So the circumstances are very proper. I think that it is also perceived very well from the Turkish side, and I think that now it's up to both sides to utilize this opportunity and to build on it rather than to let it fade away without achieving concrete steps.
So, Riccardo, what do you think? Is this a big development in terms of regional developments, and has earthquake diplomacy created another opening for Ankara and Cairo?
I think it's obviously an important development because it's the first time, right, that the Egyptian foreign minister in a long time visits Turkey, and this comes after the handshake between President Sisi and Erdogan in Doha at the Qatar World Cup. So there is, I would say, to a degree, a desire by both sides, surely from the Turkish side, to move forward with the rapprochement. And I think, obviously, what is happening now with the show of solidarity and support from the Egyptian is definitely something that we shouldn't dismiss. The problem, however, remains that, particularly from the Egyptian side, there are some very clear and I would say difficult to negotiate asks towards Turkey. And these obstacles will remain very difficult to navigate in this rapprochement. It is possible, of course, to conceive that at some point there will be some sort of diplomatic normalization, even though not all of these issues will be tackled. But these problems are still there, and they still need to be properly addressed.
So, Ali, what do you think? What challenges lie ahead, and how would fully restored ties between Turkey and Egypt impact the two countries' political standing, as well as the wider region?
Yeah, I think that there are definitely certain files that pose a challenge to the normalization of relations between the two sides. I believe that the first file would be the Libyan issue. Till now, the Egyptian side didn't radically change its policies concerning Libya, but once he decides to change that status, I think that Libya will open vast of opportunities to both sides on political, economic, security levels, and that will definitely, in my opinion, push the two sides to normalize relations. Currently, the economic situation in Turkey and in Egypt, I think that is a very pressing factor. And yes, despite the difficulty, it might convince both sides to reach an agreement on Libya. And if this happens, then things will be much smoother and easier concerning other regional issues. There is from the Egyptian perspective, Ankara's policies towards Syria and Iraq, but I think that the situation in Syria should not be dealt from this perspective. It is an independent issue, and at the end, it depends on the policies of Assad rather than Turkey and Egypt.
So, Ricardo, Egypt's foreign minister said Cairo will give priority to international aid ships to across the Suez Canal en route to Turkey. How significant is this, and how would this help boost aid efforts to Turkey as well as the two-country economic relations?
I think it's, again, a very tangible, direct move by Egypt to send a clear signal to Turkey that they are, and Syria, that they're on their side, that obviously they're willing to help them. I think it's symbolic also. It's very important right now at this stage to clearly show that there is a solidarity that goes beyond the political divisions that there could be between these two countries. It's also important to remember that even though Egypt and Turkey don't have fully fully developed normal diplomatic relations, they still have economic ties.
Sure, trade ties.
Yes. Exactly. And so this is, in my view, an important part of the picture, which shows that there is potential here to move forward on the file of going back to a normal bilateral relationship.
So Ali Shukri also visited Syria before arriving in Turkey. Are relations thawing between Cairo and Damascus?
At least visibly speaking. However, the U.S. blocked these efforts. Currently, these countries, including Egypt, are trying to utilize the humanitarian situation to push forward towards normalizing with Assad. Whether this will happen or not, and whether it will help facilitate further the Turkey-Egypt relations remains to be seen. But I think that, as I said before, the Syrian issue is very complicated. There are a lot of players and a lot of interests, and we have the refugees problems, we have the legitimacy problems, and these would pose vast challenges to Egypt and any other country who tries to normalize with others without pushing him to make a political transition and contain the refugee problem, at least on the short term.
Yeah, Ricardo Ali says it's not going to be an easy job, but what would a fully normalized region mean for the world in terms of political stability?
I think this is probably the biggest challenge, but also the biggest potential opportunity for the stability of the region. And obviously that would have a series of positive repercussions beyond the Middle East and North Africa, and which are quite clear, especially for Europe, especially at this time with the war in Ukraine. It's clear that there has been a general trend towards reconciliation between many of the protagonists and the actors that were really involved in the sort of tensions that characterized the region for many years. And it's clear that there are a few missing, I would say, pieces in this puzzle, one of which obviously is Egypt, Turkey, and then the other one is obviously the sort of return of Syria to the sort of general Arab, I would say, international acceptance. And I think that with these two pieces at some point, hopefully in place, that could really lead and open up the possibility of a new era, a new phase in Middle Eastern relations. Of course, we would still have the big issue of Iran, but that's a separate question that is actually much more complicated.
So we only actually see openly, Ricardo, the United States is opposed to normalizing ties with Assad. But is it also the same for the European Union? Do you think the EU countries would toe the line with the United States or adopt a different approach towards Syria since they're so afraid of another refugee influx into Europe?
Well, I mean, it is very hard to answer this question at this stage, given that we are not really at an advanced stage in this kind of process of normalization of ties with Syria. But definitely, of course, considerations regarding stability and migration and refugees, etc., would definitely play a role, right? Because a normalized and stabilized Syria would also open up the possibility, at least in theory, from the point of view of some of the European governments, of then possibly sending back some of the refugees, and for sure, preventing the possibility of a new crisis. So these are all issues that would probably play a role in the considerations of the Europeans towards this issue. But obviously, right now, I would say, unity of the transatlantic relationship between Europe and the US is so strong that it is hard to imagine that there would be a major divergence on this issue.
So, Ali, let's say, I mean, I know it's not easy to materialize, but could the normalization of the region lead to a thaw in relations between Turkey and Syria moving forward?
Theoretically speaking, it's possible, but as I said before, we should not deal with Syria as a normal issue like any other issue like Egypt or the Gulf. It is a special issue which has its own circumstances and problems that should be solved also internally first before going to the regional dynamics and international dynamics. And so far we have not seen any step from Assad regime towards any kind of concessions or a kind of reform, which leaves us in a pessimistic situation, unfortunately, at least for myself. But assuming that a positive change happened in the Syrian theater, then definitely this will be reflected positively not only on Turkey and the regional Sham area and Gulf region, but also on the Eastern Mediterranean and on the regional level as a whole. But as I said before, this is a far-fetched idea, at least at the current moment. And I hope positive development happens in Syria. But again, this depends on what Assad is willing to do. And currently, there are no pressure from any side on Assad to do anything, which is not good in my opinion.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.
Your engagement through a like, share, and subscribe will propel us at warp speed towards the continuation of our mission to truthfully